Kyle Martinez floated through the navigation room of the starbound trader, checking the star charts for the 5th time that morning. The merchant vessel was 3 days into its cargo run to the outer colonies, and everything was running smoothly. His partner, Vexnor, worked at the console beside him, his 4 eyes focused on calibrating an expensive navigation crystal. The Zelathi alien stood 7 feet tall, covered in blue scales that shimmered under the ship's lights. His species came from a world where logic ruled everything. They didn't laugh at jokes. They didn't cry at sad movies. They especially didn't understand why humans named their vehicles or talked to plants. "The trajectory is optimal," Vexnor said in his flat mechanical voice. "We will arrive at Colony 7 in 43 hours and 16 minutes. Kyle nodded, pulling out his communication device to check his messages. A smile spread across his face when he saw Emma's name pop up. She had sent him a photo of Earth's sunrise from her apartment window. "Beautiful morning here," her message read. "How's the void treating you?" Kyle typed back quickly. "Same old stars, different day. Your sunrise beats my view of empty space." "What are you doing?" Vexnor asked, not looking up from his work. "Just messaging with this girl from Earth," Kyle said casually. "Her name's Emma. We've been talking for a few weeks now." The navigation crystal slipped from Vexnor's 4-fingered hand. It hit the metal floor with a sharp crack that echoed through the room. The crystal was worth more than Kyle's salary for 6 months. Kyle looked up from his device. "You okay, buddy?" Vexnor's scales had shifted from their normal blue to a deep, purple color. His 4 eyes were wide, staring at Kyle like he had just announced plans to fly the ship into a sun. The alien's respiratory vents on his neck were opening and closing rapidly. You mentioned a human female?" Vexnor's voice cracked, something Kyle had never heard in their 2 years of working together. "Yeah, Emma. Want to see her picture?" Kyle held up his device, showing a photo of a woman with brown hair and green eyes smiling at the camera. Vexnor stumbled backward, hitting the wall. His scales turned an even darker shade of purple. "You have initiated contact with a potential mate without proper authorization?" Kyle laughed. "Mate? We're just talking. She seems nice. We have a lot in common." "A lot in common?" Vexnor's voice rose 3 octaves. "How can you possibly know that without genetic compatibility testing? Where are your medical charts, your ancestral lineage documents, your 5-year relationship projection analysis?" "My what now?" Kyle put his device down, concerned by his partner's reaction. "Vex, it's just casual conversation. We talk about movies, music, our jobs, normal stuff." Vexnor slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, his head in his hands. "Normal. The human says this is normal. Are you having some kind of breakdown?" Kyle moved closer to his partner. "Should I call medical?" "How did this happen?" Vexnor looked up at him with all 4 eyes. "Explain the process, every detail." Kyle shrugged. "I was on the Interstellar Network forum for xenobiology. She posted an interesting article about cellular adaptation in zero gravity. I commented. She replied. We started talking." "You just started talking? To a stranger?" "That's usually how you meet people, yeah." Vexnor made a sound that might have been a whimper. "Without consulting your family elders? Without permission from her clan leaders? Without even a basic personality matrix evaluation? Humans don't really do that stuff," Kyle said, sitting down next to his partner. "We just talk and see if we like each other." "See if you like each other?" Vexnor repeated the words like they were in an alien language, which Kyle supposed they kind of were. "How can you determine compatibility without algorithmic analysis? What about genetic optimization, social status matching, economic projection models? We figure it out as we go," Kyle said. "That's part of the fun." "Fun?" Vexnor stood up suddenly, pacing around the room. His tail, which usually stayed still, was whipping back and forth. "Kyle, do you understand what you've done? You've initiated an unregistered romantic interaction with an unvetted individual using unregulated communication channels. I wouldn't call it romantic. We're just friends right now." "Right now?" Vexnor froze. "You mean this status could change? Without warning? without a formal reclassification process? Kyle couldn't help but grin. That's usually how it works. Sometimes friends become more than friends. When? When it feels right? Feels? Vexnor grabbed Kyle by the shoulders. You're basing potential reproductive decisions on feelings? Whoa, nobody said anything about reproduction. We're just chatting online. But it could lead to reproduction? I mean, theoretically, anything could lead to. This is worse than I thought. Vexnor let go of Kyle and pulled up his personal computer interface. His fingers flew across the holographic keyboard. I need to access the human behavioral database immediately. Why do you have a human behavioral database? Kyle asked. Every species has one for humans. You're the most unpredictable race in the galaxy. Vexnor pulled up file after file. Look at this. Case study 4291. Human forms emotional bond with malfunctioning coffee machine. Refuses to let maintenance replace it. Case study 7832. Human marries alien after knowing them for 10 solar rotations. Case study 9144. Human cries during commercial. Advertisement for pet food despite not owning a pet. Those seem like perfectly normal. Normal? Vexnor spun around. Kyle, your species develops deep emotional attachments to inanimate objects. You name your vehicles. You apologize to furniture. When you bump into it, you feel guilty throwing away old clothing. When you put it like that, it sounds weird. It is weird. And now you're telling me you've started a potential courtship through random network contact? Vexnor's scales flickered between purple and orange. Do you know what the Zalathi courtship process involves? I'm guessing it's complicated. Complicated? Vexnor pulled up a massive flowchart on his screen. First, both families must submit genetic histories going back 12 generations. Then there's a compatibility assessment that takes 6 months. After that, if approved, the potential mates may exchange written correspondence for 1 year. Only pre-approved topics are allowed. Weather, certainly not. Politics, absolutely not. Only discussions of genetic health and resource management. That sounds terrible, Kyle said honestly. It's efficient. It's logical. It prevents emotional damage and resource waste. Vexnor pointed at Kyle's communication device. What prevents this Emma from being incompatible with you? Nothing, I guess, but that's okay. If we're not compatible, we'll figure it out and move on. Move on? Vexnor looked like he might faint. After emotional investment, after time expenditure, after potential chemical bonding through oxytocin and dopamine response, Kyle's device buzzed. Emma had sent another message. The lab is crazy today. 3 experiments running at once. How do you stay focused with all those stars outside your window? Kyle smiled and typed back. Practice, though sometimes I get distracted by particularly interesting messages. You're doing it again, Vexnor shouted. You're having an unregulated emotional exchange. Want me to tell her you said hi? Kyle asked. No, yes, I don't know. Vexnor grabbed the forgotten navigation crystal from the floor, checking it for damage. This is a disaster. We need containment protocols. We need to alert the captain. We need to finish our shift, Kyle said calmly. Everything's fine, Vex. Humans do this all the time. That's what terrifies me, Vexnor muttered, his scales finally settling back to their normal blue, though they still flickered purple at the edges. Your species courts chaos like it's a friend. Kyle thought about Emma's smile in the photo. Sometimes chaos leads to the best things in life. Vexnor made a strangled sound and returned to his console, muttering in his native language. Kyle could only catch a few words, but they seemed to be about humans and their complete lack of survival instincts. His device buzzed again. Emma had sent a link to a song she thought he'd like. Kyle put in his earpiece and hit play, humming along as he worked. Behind him, Vexnor watched with a mixture of horror and fascination, taking notes on his computer. The title of his document read, Emergency Report. Human crew member engaging in uncontrolled romantic behavior. Threat level, undetermined but likely catastrophic. The next morning, Kyle found Vexnor in the ship's library, surrounded by datapads and holographic displays. The Zalathi hadn't slept. His scales had a dull, grayish tint that meant exhaustion in his species. Empty containers of his species, equivalent of coffee, littered the table. "Have you been here all night?" Kyle asked, setting down a fresh cup of earth coffee. Vexnor looked up with all four bloodshot eyes. "I've been researching. Kyle, the situation is worse than I thought." "The situation where I'm talking to a nice girl?" "The situation where you're engaging in humanity's most dangerous behavioral pattern?" Vexnor pulled up a holographic display. "Do you know what other species call your mating practices?" "I'm afraid to ask." "The madness," Vexnor said seriously. "The Terran madness. Some cultures have entire warning systems about it." Kyle sat down, sipping his coffee. "That seems a bit dramatic." "Does it?" Vexnor pulled up a star map. "Look at this. 17 different species have official protocols for dealing with humans who are, and I quote, experiencing romantic feelings. The Proxians classify it as a temporary insanity. The Rigelians consider it a form of intoxication. The Andromedan Empire has support groups for those who've witnessed human courtship. Support groups? They call them survivors of Terran affection displays. They meet twice a week." Vexnor switched to another file. "I've been studying your species' history all night. Do you know what I've learned?" Kyle was almost afraid to ask. "What?" "Your people write songs about heartbreak. You create art about unrequited love. You have an entire entertainment industry based on watching other humans fall in love." Vexnor's voice grew more frantic with each sentence. "You have a holiday where you shoot arrows at people to make them fall in love. That's not exactly how Valentine's Day works. And this." Vexnor pulled up an image. "What is this?" Kyle looked at the screen. "That's Romeo and Juliet. Two humans who knew each other for less than a week and decided to die rather than live without each other. This is considered one of your greatest romantic stories." "Well, when you put it like that. And this is normal for your species." Vexnor stood up, pacing. "I found documented cases of humans falling in love at first sight. First sight, not first genetic screening, not first compatibility assessment, just looking at someone and deciding to alter their entire life trajectory." Kyle couldn't help but smile. "Sometimes it works out. Sometimes." Vexnor pulled up statistics. "Your species has a 50% divorce rate in some regions, yet you continue to marry at the same frequency. It's like watching someone touch fire, get burned, heal, and immediately touch fire again. We're optimists. You're insane." Vexnor sat back down heavily. "And now you're infected with this madness. This Emma has begun the process." "What process?" "The human bonding process. I've studied it extensively through the night." Vexnor pulled up a diagram of a human brain. "First, there's the attraction phase. Increased dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. Your brain literally functions differently. You lose appetite, you can't sleep, you think about the person constantly. That's not happening to me. You checked your messages 17 times. During yesterday's shift, you were counting? Then comes the attachment phase." Vexnor continued, ignoring Kyle's question. "Oxytocin and vasopressin increase. You start to feel comfort and security with the person. You want to share experiences with them. You begin to plan a future together. We're just friends, Vex. For now." Vexnor pulled up another chart. "But humans can transition from friendship to romance without warning. I found cases where humans were friends for years, then one day, boom, he slapped the table. Romantic feelings appear like a stellar explosion. That's not always a bad thing." "Not bad?" Vexnor pulled up more files. Case study 15692. Human falls in love with someone who lives on different planet. Travels for 6 months to meet them. Case study 23441. Human learns entire alien language to communicate with romantic interest. Case study 34298. Human gives up prestigious career to follow romantic partner to agricultural colony. Those sound like beautiful stories. Beautiful? Vexnor stared at him. They're terrifying. Your species makes major life decisions based on chemical reactions in your brain. Every decision is based on chemical reactions in the brain, technically. Don't get philosophical with me, Kyle. Vexnor pulled up a new document. I've been reading about this, Emma. Kyle frowned. How have you been reading about Emma? Her published papers. She's a xenobiologist, specializing in interspecies communication. Vexnor looked troubled. She's intelligent. Is that bad? It makes it worse. If she were incompatible, you might lose interest. But intelligence combined with shared interests? Vexnor shuddered. The human bonding process will accelerate. Kyle's device buzzed. He looked at it and smiled. Emma had sent a joke about laboratory equipment that only a scientist would understand. You're smiling, Vexnor accused. The dopamine is already affecting you. It's just a funny joke. Humor bonding. Another human weakness. Vexnor pulled up yet another file. Your species bonds through laughter. No other species does this. The Centaurians have a saying, humans will marry anyone who makes them laugh enough. That's not... Kyle paused. Actually, that might be a little true. You see? Vexnor stood up again, his tail swishing anxiously. This is how it starts. First jokes, then deeper conversations, then emotional vulnerability, then you're traveling across the galaxy to meet her. Would that be so bad? Vexnor made a sound like a steam valve releasing pressure. Kyle, do you understand the complications? She's on Earth, you're on a merchant vessel. The logistics alone, we're just talking. For now. Vexnor pulled up a timeline. But I've mapped out the probable progression based on human behavioral patterns. Within 2 months, you'll want to video chat. Within 4 months, you'll want to meet in person. Within 6 months, you'll be making what humans call serious decisions. Kyle laughed. You can't predict relationships with a timeline. Humans can't. But other species have been studying you for decades. Vexnor showed Himothic Manual. The Galactic Council's Guide to Human Romantic Behavior, 7,000 pages. Chapter 1. Alone is about something called mixed signals. Mixed signals aren't that complicated. They require their own chapter, with subsections. Vexnor flipped through the digital pages. Section 1-2. A. When I'm fine, doesn't mean fine. Section 1B. The dangers of read receipts. Section 1C. Interpreting emoji usage in romantic context. Kyle couldn't stop laughing. You're overthinking this. I'm thinking the appropriate amount. You're underthinking. Vexnor pulled up a final display. Do you know what the #1 cause of human space accidents is after mechanical failure? What? Distracted pilots thinking about romantic partners? That can't be true. It's in the official statistics. Pilot was composing message to significant other appears in 12% of incident reports. Vexnor sat down, exhausted. Your species has weaponized love. That's the most dramatic thing you've ever said. I'm serious, Kyle. The warrior clans of Nexus 9 studied human romance as a potential psychological weapon. They concluded it was too unpredictable to deploy safely. Kyle's device buzzed again. Emma had sent a picture of a nebula from her telescope, saying it reminded her of the one he'd described in his last message. She's thinking about things you've said when you're not talking, Vexnor observed. Stage 2 of human bonding. It's progressing exactly as the manual predicted. You're being paranoid. I'm being practical. Someone has to be. Vexnor stood up, gathering his datapads. I need to prepare a report for the captain. He needs to know what's happening. You're going to report me for talking to a girl? I'm going to report a potential Category 3 emotional event. Vexnor headed for the door, then paused. Kyle, I'm not trying to ruin your happiness. I'm trying to prevent an incident. What kind of incident? The kind where a competent navigation officer becomes so distracted by romance that he accidentally plots a course through a sun. That's never happened. Station 7. 3 years ago. Human pilot named Danny. He was texting someone named Grace. Vexnor shook his head. the station still being repaired. After Vexnor left, Kyle sat alone in the library, looking at Emma's message. The nebula photo was beautiful, but what struck him was that she'd thought of him when she saw it. Maybe Vexnor had a point about the bonding process. His device buzzed once more. "Sorry for sending so many messages," Emma wrote. "I just really enjoy talking to you," Kyle typed back without hesitation. "Never apologize. I enjoy talking to you too." Somewhere in his quarters, Vexnor's scales probably just turned purple again. Kyle smiled at the thought and went back to looking at the stars, wondering if Emma was looking at the same ones. The emergency meeting was called for 1400 hours in Conference Room B. Kyle walked in to find not just Vexnor, but representatives from every species on the ship. The air was thick with tension and various atmospheric supplements to accommodate different breathing needs. Shimmer, the Proxian, floated near the ceiling, their crystalline body pulsing with concerned yellow light. Drift, the nebula being, had compressed themselves into a vaguely humanoid cloud of purple gas in the corner. Unit 7, the Ferox, stood perfectly still by the wall, their mechanical eyes focused on Kyle with unwavering intensity. "This is an intervention," Vexnor announced. Kyle looked around the room. "Are you serious right now?" "Extremely serious." Shimmer's voice resonated like wind chimes. "Vexnor has informed us of your situation. We are here to help." "I don't have a situation. I'm talking to someone, that's it." "That's how it starts with humans," Drift's voice whispered from their gaseous form. "Always starts simple, then chaos follows." Unit 7's mechanical voice clicked and whirred. "Statistical analysis confirms. Human romantic involvement leads to 67.3% increase in irregular behavior patterns." Kyle sat down slowly. "You've all been talking about me?" "We're concerned." Shimmer pulsed a sympathetic blue. "Each of us has witnessed human romantic behavior. The trauma stays with you?" "Trauma?" Kyle couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Perhaps we should share our experiences," Vexnor suggested. "So Kyle understands the gravity of the situation." Shimmer floated lower, their light dimming to indicate a serious story. 3 years ago, I served on the Crystal Palace with a human named Tony. He seemed normal, rational. Then he met a Proxian at a trade conference. The room grew quiet. Even Drift stopped swirling. Tony didn't understand that Proxians communicate emotions through light frequencies. Shimmer continued. He wrote her 47 love poems. 47, in words. She couldn't understand any of them. He tried to explain them by writing more poems about the first poems. "That's actually kind of sweet," Kyle said. "Sweet?" Shimmer flashed red. He learned to modify a light projector to beam his feelings in our frequency. "Do you know what human love looks like in light form? It's chaos, pure, overwhelming chaos." The poor Proxian thought she was having a medical emergency. The entire station's lights went haywire. 3 ships crashed because the docking signals got mixed with Tony's love declaration. "He caused accidents trying to say, 'I love you'?" Kyle asked. "Human love is too intense for proper light frequency," Shimmer confirmed. "We had to evacuate the station. Tony still sends light messages sometimes. We've classified them as navigation hazards." Drift swirled forward. "My experience was worse. A human named Lisa tried to hug me." "That doesn't sound too bad," Kyle said. "I'm made of gas." Drift's form agitated. "She walked right through me. We both needed medical attention." "But did that stop her?" "No. She created a containment suit just so she could hug me properly. She spent 3 months designing it, 3 months for a hug." "That's dedication," Kyle offered. "That's insanity," Drift contracted. "She said I looked lonely and needed affection. I'm a sentient cloud. I don't have the concept of loneliness." "But you do now," Unit 7 observed. Drift's color deepened. "That's not the point." Unit 7 stepped forward with mechanical precision. "My interaction with human romance was different. A human engineer named Sam worked in my department. Sam began referring to their tools with gendered pronouns and names. The welding torch was Betty. The diagnostic scanner was Mr. Whiskers. Lots of humans name their tools," Kyle defended. "Sam celebrated the welding torch's birthday. Unit 7 continued. With cake, a cake for a tool. When the torch malfunctioned and needed replacement, Sam held a funeral. With speeches, multiple humans attended and cried. That seems extreme even for humans, Kyle admitted. Sam then began a romantic relationship with another human. Unit 7 went on. The emotional intensity increased by 347%. They wrote songs about each other using the machinery sounds in the engine room. They had date nights in the ventilation shafts because they thought the acoustics were romantic. The ventilation shafts? They said the hum reminded them of their first kiss. Unit 7's optical sensors dimmed slightly. I do not understand how ventilation sounds can trigger romantic memories, but I had to reroute the entire air system to give them privacy. Vexnor stood up. You see, Kyle, every species has these stories. Humans in love don't follow any logical patterns. But the stories all worked out, didn't they? Kyle pointed out. Tony learned a new form of communication. Lisa invented new technology. Sam found happiness. At what cost? Vexnor pulled up his data pad. I've compiled a list of incidents involving human romance on merchant vessels in the last decade. Would you like to hear it? Not really. Item 1. Human pilot draws heart shapes with ship's trajectory, wastes 3 days of fuel. Item 2. Human cook attempts to create romantic dinner for alien partner, accidentally poisons half the crew because they didn't understand different species biology. Item 3. Human engineer proposes marriage over ship-wide intercom, causes mass panic among species who interpret loud declarations as war cries. Those are all accidents, Kyle protested. Exactly, Shimmer pulsed. Human romance is a series of accidents that you somehow interpret as destiny. Your species has a word for accidentally falling in love, Drift added. Falling, like it's a pit you stumble into. Multiple languages have this phrase, Unit 7 confirmed. Falling in love, falling for someone, fall head over heels. Your linguistics suggest romance is something that happens to you, not something you choose. Kyle's device buzzed. Everyone in the room tensed. Don't answer it, Vexnor warned. Kyle looked at the message. Emma had sent a link to a research paper she thought would interest him, with a note saying, "This made me think of our conversation yesterday. Your perspective on cellular adaptation was brilliant. She's complimenting your intelligence," Shimmer observed, reading over his shoulder. Stage 3. Intellectual bonding. How many stages are there? Kyle asked. According to the manual, 17 primary stages with 42 substages, Vexnor replied. You're progressing faster than average. This is ridiculous. Kyle stood up. You're acting like falling in love is some kind of disease. The Arcturians classify it as one, Unit 7 noted. They call it temporary human-induced emotional dysregulation syndrome. THIDS for short, Vexnor added. There's medication for it, but it doesn't work on humans. Because we're not sick. We're just capable of forming connections. Kyle felt frustrated. Don't any of your species fall in love? The room went quiet. Proxians bond through careful light harmony that takes decades to achieve, Shimmer explained softly. Nebula beings merge consciousness partially after centuries of coexistence, Drift whispered. Ferrix units sometimes share code, Unit 7 stated. It's very orderly. Zelathi undergo genetic compatibility testing for 3 cycles before meeting. In person, Vexnor added. Everything has an order, a process, a logic. That sounds lonely, Kyle said. Lonely is spending 6 months traveling to meet someone you've never touched, Vexnor countered. Lonely is writing poetry to someone who might not feel the same way. Lonely is what humans do every day when they put themselves out there. But when it works, Kyle said, thinking of Emma's messages. It's worth it. Is it? Shimmer pulsed skeptically. Is the chance of connection worth the risk of pain? Yes, Kyle said without hesitation. The room fell silent again. The alien crew members exchanged looks that Kyle couldn't quite interpret. He's already too far gone, Drift whispered. The human bonding has begun. We can still save him, Vexnor insisted. Kyle, I've prepared a presentation on proper courtship protocols across 78 civilizations. If you just follow these guidelines, I don't want guidelines. I want to get to know Emma better. Without a plan? Shimmer flashed alarmed orange. Without safety protocols? Drift swirled anxiously. Without algorithmic compatibility matching? Unit 7's processors whirred. Without any of that, Kyle confirmed. Just two people talking and seeing where it goes. Vexnor's scales shifted through several colors before settling on resigned gray. Then we've lost him. The Terran madness has taken hold. I'm not mad. I'm just human. Same thing. All four aliens said in unison. Kyle's device buzzed again. Emma had added, "Sorry if I'm bothering you, I just really enjoy our conversations." Kyle smiled and typed back, "You could never bother me. Tell me more about your research." Behind him, Vexnor pulled up a new document on his datapad titled, Incident Report, Complete Failure of Romantic Intervention, Recommend Quarantine Protocols. Shimmer dimmed their lights in what might have been sadness. Drift condensed into a smaller cloud. Unit 7's optical sensors focused on Kyle with what almost looked like pity. "Should we inform the captain?" Drift asked. "We should prepare the medical bay," Vexnor replied. "If human romantic patterns hold, Kyle will soon experience symptoms including but not limited to decreased appetite, insomnia, increased heart rate, and the overwhelming urge to share sunsets." "I like sunsets," Kyle said defensively. "You work in space," Vexnor exclaimed. "We don't have sunsets." "Emma does," Kyle said, looking at his device. "She sends me pictures sometimes." The aliens exchanged another round of concerned looks. Stage 4, they said in unison, sharing daily experiences. 2 weeks had passed since the intervention. Kyle had continued messaging Emma every day, much to the horror of his alien crewmates. They watched him like he was a ticking time bomb, waiting for the human romance madness to fully manifest. The mess hall was quiet during the evening meal. Kyle sat at his usual table, smiling at his device while eating. The other crew members kept stealing glances at him, whispering among themselves. "He hasn't eaten properly in 3 days," Vexnor muttered, to Shimmer. "Just picks at his food while staring at that device." "Classic Stage 5, Shimmer pulsed knowingly. "Loss of appetite due to romantic preoccupation. Yesterday I caught him humming," Drift added, swirling closer. "Humming?" He was making musical sounds without purpose. "The deterioration is accelerating," Unit 7 observed. "My sensors indicate his productivity has decreased by 12%. Kyle looked up from his device. "I can hear you all, you know." "Good." Vexnor stood up, his scales shifting to determined green. "Kyle, this has gone far enough. We're implementing Protocol 7. "What's Protocol 7? "Direct intervention." Vexnor pulled out a massive datapad. "We've prepared a 200-page manual on proper courtship protocols. Section 1 covers appropriate greeting distances across different gravitational fields. Section 2 discusses optimal communication frequencies to avoid emotional overwhelm." "You wrote a manual about my love life?" "We wrote a manual to save your life," Vexnor corrected. "Page 74 specifically covers the dangers of premature emotional bonding without proper medical clearance." Kyle's device buzzed. He glanced at it and suddenly sat up straighter, his eyes widening. "What?" Vexnor demanded. "What did she say? Is it bad? Has she rejected you? Do we need to implement heartbreak protocols?" "She wants to video chat," Kyle said quietly. "Tonight." The mess hall erupted in chaos. Shimmer flashed through the entire light spectrum. Drift expanded to twice their size. Unit 7's warning lights activated. Vexnor dropped his datapad, his scales turning the deepest purple Kyle had ever seen. "Video communication." Vexnor gasped. "But you've only been text messaging for 6 weeks. The manual clearly states video interaction shouldn't occur until month 3. She says she's curious about the ship," Kyle read from his message. "She wants to see where I work." "She wants to see your environment?" Shimmer pulsed frantically. "That's Stage 7, territorial integration." "You skipped Stage 6, Drift wailed. You can't skip stages. It's unprecedented. Actually, Unit 7 interjected. According to my database, humans skip relationship stages 34% of the time. They call it going with the flow. Flow? Vexnor looked disgusted. Relationships aren't fluid dynamics. They're structured social. Contracts. Kyle was already typing his response. I told her, yes, we're talking in an hour. An hour? Vexnor grabbed Kyle's shoulders. We need to prepare. You need coaching. What if you say something wrong? What if there's awkward silence? What if she judges your quarters? My quarters are fine. Your quarters have that poster of a Earth cat wearing armor while riding a dinosaur. That's art. That's insanity visualized. Kyle stood up. I'm going to get ready. Please don't do anything weird while I'm gone. Weird? Shimmer flashed indignantly. We're not the ones about to broadcast our emotions across space. Kyle left the mess hall. The moment he was gone, Vexnor turned to the others. Emergency measures, he said. We need to monitor this interaction for Kyle's safety. That seems unethical, Drift ventured. What's unethical is letting him navigate human romance without supervision, Vexnor countered. Unit 7, can you tap into the communication feed? That would violate 17 privacy protocols. Can you do it? Yes. Then do it. We need to know what we're dealing with. An hour later, the alien crew had gathered in a maintenance room near Kyle's quarters. Unit 7 had set up a monitor that would let them see the video feed. They watched, as Kyle nervously adjusted his shirt and checked his hair in the mirror. He's preening, Shimmer observed. Biological mating display behavior. His heart rate is elevated, Unit 7 reported. Pupils dilated. Classic human arousal symptoms. He hasn't even seen her yet, Vexnor exclaimed. How can he have arousal symptoms from anticipation? Human imagination, Drift whispered. They can simulate entire relationships in their minds. The call connected. Emma appeared on Kyle's screen, and simultaneously on the monitor in the maintenance room. She had brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, green eyes that seemed to sparkle, and a warm smile that made Kyle smile in return. Hi, she said simply. Hi, Kyle replied. That's it? Vexnor whispered. They exchanged greetings with no information. Content? Watch their faces, Shimmer said softly. They're communicating non-verbally. Emma laughed. It's weird finally seeing you move. You're less pixelated than I imagined. Kyle laughed too. Thanks, I think. You look exactly like your pictures, which is good because I've been staring at them a lot. He admitted to staring. Drift gasped. That's stalking behavior in 12 systems. She's smiling, Unit 7 noted. She appears to find it endearing, rather than concerning. Humans. All 4 aliens muttered. On screen, Emma was asking about the ship. Kyle picked up his device and started giving her a tour, showing her the navigation room where he worked. That's where Vexnor usually stands, Kyle said, pointing to a console. He's probably having a panic attack somewhere about us talking. He sounds protective, Emma said. That's sweet. In the maintenance room, Vexnor's scales flushed pink. I'm not sweet. I'm practical. Kyle showed Emma more of the ship, talking easily now. They discussed her research, his latest navigation calculations, and somehow ended up in a debate about whether Earth cats or Earth dogs made better pets. She's matching his communication style, Unit 7 observed, mirroring his gestures. Classic, human bonding behavior. They're laughing at irregular intervals, Shimmer added. No predictable pattern. How do they know when something is funny? Context? Drift suggested. Chaos, Vexnor corrected. Pure emotional chaos. Then Emma said something that made all the aliens freeze. You know, Kyle, I've been thinking. My research grant includes travel allowance for field studies. I could classify visiting your ship as studying interspecies communication dynamics. Kyle's face lit up. You could visit? If you'd want that, Emma said, suddenly seeming shy. I'd love that, Kyle said quickly. I mean, if you could manage it. No pressure. Smooth save, Shimmer muttered. She's already filed paperwork, Vexnor said in horror. She said she has travel allowance. She's been planning this. Strategic thinking, Unit 7 acknowledged. Impressive. Emma was explaining her research. I've actually been documenting our conversations as part of my thesis on breaking down cultural barriers. The way you describe working with other species is fascinating. I've already submitted the preliminary paperwork for the visit. It's all approved from my end. The aliens exchanged shocked looks. She's been studying him? Drift whispered. While he was falling for her? Shimmer added. That's... Vexnor paused. Actually brilliant. She played the long game, Unit 7 calculated. She approached this strategically while appearing spontaneous. She combined human emotional chaos with logical planning. On screen, Kyle was saying, "You filed paperwork? Vexnor will be so proud. He loves paperwork." Emma laughed. I figured that might help. I researched Zalathi culture. I have forms for health clearances, communication protocols, and even a formal introduction letter in Zalathi script. She learned Zalathi script? Vexnor's scales shifted to impressed gold. That takes months. I also have clearances for meeting Proxians, Nebula beings, and Ferox units, Emma continued. I want to do this right. The maintenance room fell silent. She researched all of us. Shimmer pulsed softly. She prepared, Drift murmured. She took human chaos and added structure. Unit 7 computed. She's bridging the gap. Vexnor stood up slowly. We've been wrong. What? The others asked. We've been trying to protect Kyle from human romantic chaos. But Emma isn't chaos. She's adaptation. She's doing what humans do best, finding a way to connect, despite differences. On screen, Kyle and Emma were making plans. She could arrive in 3 weeks using a transport vessel that regularly supplied their route. 3 weeks? Kyle said. That's fast. Too fast? Emma asked. Perfect, Kyle assured her. Vexnor might need sedation, but perfect. Emma smiled. I'll bring my research on interspecies communication. Maybe it'll help him understand that humans aren't as chaotic as we seem. We just approach connection differently. After they ended the call, Kyle sat staring at the blank screen with the expression the aliens had never seen before. That's stage 8, Shimmer said quietly. Future planning with reciprocal interest. She executed a perfect human courtship while incorporating alien protocols. Unit 7 analyzed. The efficiency is remarkable. She's coming here, Drift swirled anxiously. A human female on our ship. Vexnor pulled up his datapad and deleted his 200-page manual. We need a new approach. If Emma can bridge human and alien protocols, maybe we've been looking at this wrong. You're giving up? Shimmer flashed surprised white. I'm adapting, Vexnor said. If you can't beat human chaos, maybe you can learn from it. The door to the maintenance room opened. Kyle stood there, not looking surprised to see them all. Next, time you spy on me. Maybe don't use the maintenance room I walk past to get to my quarters, he said. Also, Emma says, 3 weeks later, the entire crew of the Starbound trader had gathered at the docking bay. Word had spread that a human female was arriving, and even crew members who never left their departments had found excuses to be present. Vexnor stood at the front, his scales polished to a bright blue sheen. He held a traditional Zalathi welcome crystal, which he'd been practicing with for days. Shimmer floated nearby, pulsing in what they considered calming colors. Drift had compressed themselves into their most formal cloud shape. Unit 7 had even cleaned their optical sensors. Everyone remained calm, Vexnor said for the 5th time. She's just a human. We've dealt with humans before. Not a human female in a romantic context with one of our crew, Shimmer pointed out. The manual says this is unprecedented, Drift added. I deleted the manual, Vexnor reminded them. We're going with what Kyle calls playing it by ear. That phrase makes no logical sense, Unit 7 noted. Ears don't play anything. The docking, bay doors opened with a hiss. Emma walked through, pulling a small hover case behind her. She was exactly as she'd appeared on video, but somehow her presence filled the space differently, She moved with confidence but not arrogance, her eyes taking in everything with scientific curiosity. Kyle stepped forward, and they hugged. The alien crew collectively held their breath. "That's full body contact," Drift whispered. "In public. With witnesses. It's lasting over 3 seconds," Unit 7 counted. "That exceeds casual greeting parameters." But then Emma turned to face them, and her smile was warm and genuine. "You must be Vexnor," she said, walking directly to the Zalathi. Then, to everyone's amazement, she performed a perfect Zalathi greeting, touching her forehead, then chest, then extending her hand with palm down at exactly the correct angle. Vexnor's scales shifted to shocked gold. "That was flawless. I practiced," Emma said. "Your culture values precision. I wanted to show respect." She turned to Shimmer and modulated her voice to harmonize with the Proxian's natural frequency. "Shimmer, it's wonderful to meet you." She pulled out a small device that projected a soft, steady light. "This is a greeting gift. It's programmed with Earth's Aurora Borealis patterns. Kyle said you appreciate light art." Shimmer's form brightened with joy. "This is beautiful. You translated an Earth phenomenon into our visual language? With help from Kyle's descriptions of how you see," Emma confirmed. She approached Drift next, maintaining a respectful distance. "I know physical contact isn't possible, so I brought this." She held up a sealed container. "It's essence of Earth rainfall. You can release it into your form if you'd like to experience how Earth's atmosphere feels." Drift swirled with excitement. "You found a way for me to experience Earth weather without traveling there? Every being should be able to experience other worlds even if they can't visit them," Emma said. Finally, she turned to Unit 7. "I analyzed your communication patterns from Kyle's descriptions. You appreciate efficiency and data." She handed them a data chip. "This contains my complete research on human bonding behaviors, with statistical analysis and predictive models. I thought you might find it interesting." Unit 7's optical sensors brightened. "You're sharing your research freely. Knowledge should be exchanged, not hoarded," Emma replied. Vexnor couldn't contain himself anymore. "You prepared individual, culturally appropriate gifts for each of us?" Emma nodded. "Kyle told me how you all reacted to our relationship. Wanted you to know that I understand your concerns. Human emotion might seem chaotic, but it doesn't mean we can't also be thoughtful." "This is unprecedented," Vexnor said, his scales shifting to impressed silver. "You've combined human spontaneity with interspecies protocol." "That's the point of my research," Emma explained, "to find ways for different species to connect despite their differences. Kyle and your crew are perfect examples. You work together, every day, bridging gaps between completely different ways of thinking." Over the next 3 months, Emma integrated into the ship's routine as if she'd always been there. She spent mornings in the navigation room with Kyle, their easy banter, and shared smiles no longer alarming the crew. Afternoons, she worked on her research, often interviewing different crew members about their cultures. The transformation in the alien crew was remarkable. Vexnor had started a correspondence with an Andromedan poet he met through Emma's research network. Their exchanges were still formal by human standards, but for a Zalathi, sending unrequested messages was practically scandalous. "She writes about stellar formations using mathematical sequences," Vexnor told Kyle one day, his scales a pleased green. "It's illogical and beautiful simultaneously." "That sounds like romance," Kyle said. "Perhaps," Vexnor admitted. "Your human chaos might be contagious." Shimmer had discovered human music through Emma, learning to translate sound waves into light patterns. They'd started performing at the ship's weekly gatherings, creating visual symphonies that made even the most stoic crew members stop and watch. "Humans layer emotions in their music," Shimmer explained to anyone who would listen. "Happy and sad at the same time. It shouldn't be possible, but it creates something entirely new." Drift had become fascinated with Earth's weather patterns. After experiencing the rainfall essence, they'd started corresponding with Earth meteorologists, exchanging atmospheric data, and slowly forming what might be called friendships. "Did you know humans will stand in rain voluntarily?" Drift asked one day. "Some even dance in it." They seek out the chaos of weather instead of avoiding it. Unit 7 had perhaps changed the most. After analyzing Emma's research, they'd started observing human behavior with new interest. They'd even given names to some of their tools, though they insisted it was just an experiment in human psychology. The welding unit seems to perform 12% better since I started calling it Marcus, Unit 7 reported. This makes no logical sense, yet the data is consistent. One evening, Kyle found Vexnor in the observation deck watching the stars. His alien partner was reading something on his datapad, his scales shifting through various colors. "What's that?" Kyle asked. "A paper I'm submitting to the Zelathi Genetic Council," Vexnor said. It's titled, "The Efficiency of Inefficiency: How Human Emotional Chaos Creates Stronger Bonds Than Protocol." Kyle sat down beside him. "That's a big change from calling it the Terran Madness." "Emma helped me understand something," Vexnor said. "You humans don't ignore logic for emotion. You use emotion as data. When you feel someone is right for you, you're processing thousands of micro-observations too complex for conscious analysis. I never thought of it that way. That's because you don't have to think about it, you just do it." Vexnor's scales shifted to amused yellow. "Do you know what Emma told me yesterday? She said she knew she wanted to meet you after your third message." "The third message? That was just about navigation algorithms." "No, it was about how you found beauty in the mathematical precision of star charts. She said anyone who could find poetry in numbers would understand finding logic in chaos." Kyle smiled. "She thinks like that." "She thinks like a human who understands the universe," Vexnor corrected. "That might be the most powerful combination possible." A year later, the Starbound trader had become famous throughout the merchant fleet. Not for its cargo runs or navigation efficiency, but as the ship where species barriers had broken down completely. Emma had turned her research into a guidebook for interspecies relationships, both romantic and platonic. It was being used at diplomatic stations across the galaxy. The subtitle read, "Finding Order in Chaos and Chaos in Order." The mess hall was full that evening, multiple species sharing tables that had once been segregated by culture. Vexnor was explaining Zelathi poetry to a group of humans, his scales shifting colors to emphasize emotional points. Shimmer was teaching a young Feryx how to see music in light. Drift was in deep conversation with a human about the philosophical implications of existing as gas versus solid matter. Kyle and Emma sat at their usual table, watching the controlled chaos around them. "You started something," Emma said, squeezing his hand. "We started something," Kyle corrected. "I just mentioned a human girl. You're the one who lost her mind enough to travel across space to meet me." Emma laughed. "Your alien partner was right. Humans are absolutely insane when it comes to love. And you're okay with that?" "More than okay," Emma said. "The chaos is the best part." Vexnor approached their table, his scales a content blue. Behind him was the Andromedan poet he'd been corresponding with. She moved like flowing water, her form shifting between solid and liquid states. "Kyle, Emma, this is Lyris," Vexnor said, his scales shifting to shy pink. "She's visiting the ship to perform her mathematical poetry." "Just to perform poetry?" Emma asked with a knowing smile. "Well," Vexnor's scales deepened to purple, "she might stay longer. We're discussing collaborative work. Purely professional." "Purely professional," Kyle repeated, noting how Vexnor's tail moved in the happy pattern he'd learned to recognize. "Although," Vexnor added, "she's taught me that some things don't require 3 cycles of assessment. Some connections are efficient in their immediacy." Lyris spoke, her voice like musical mathematics. "Vexnor has been teaching me about human chaos theory as applied to relationships. It's fascinating how disorder can create stronger patterns than order." "That's humans for you, E,"